He referred to as a sword of thunder. I want to scoop them all up into a hug and just keep them there with me for forever. And I want to reach through this page and just... Sir, I think we can wrap it up. Hi, hello, how are ya? Welcome to my channel, and more importantly, welcome to today's video. So I'm gonna go through and tell you about every single book I read this past spring. I read 21 books, DNFing one of them, but my video, my rules, I'm gonna count it because I put time and effort towards that book that it just did not even deserve. So yeah, without further ado, I'm just gonna go ahead and get started. The first book that we are going to be starting with is Onyx Storm, and I'm gonna be honest with you guys, this book surprised me in a bad way. In a bad way. I know that for this one, people are pretty split down the middle. You either love it or you hate it, and unfortunately, I am not falling under the category of I love it. I'm just not. Honestly, I didn't dislike this entire book, but it did just feel so info dumping and unnecessary and bloated. I think that half of this book was reiterating things that we already know. The other half was info dumping things that we never got a conclusion, so I don't know how she expects me to remember it. I'm not going to. And the other half was just sexual tension, but not even good sexual tension. I don't know. I don't want sexual tension between characters that are already together. Does that make sense? Like, am I crazy? More than anything, this book just felt almost like a textbook to me. It was cool to see the world expanded, to go more places, to meet more people, but it was too much for me. It was too much to no end. I didn't dislike it enough to not read the rest of the series at this point. I do want to see where we're going. I want to see what happens, but as far as this book stands, I think that it was incredibly unnecessary. Going in with another fantasy, but one that I actually enjoyed a lot more, is Nightbane by Alex Astor. This book was so fun. I think that it was very clearly a setup book. You know, we're learning lots of things, we're getting new POVs, we're getting flashbacks, we're kind of piecing things together, but I think it was done in a way that was really entertaining. It was super fun to be in Isla. I say Isla, it might be Isla. I think the pronunciation is Isla, but I say Isla in my head. So it was really fun to be in her head and to kind of get the pieces and see her so torn between Oro and Grimm and what is she gonna do and all these big decisions being made and her coming into herself and her power. I did really enjoy this book. I ended up giving Nightbane a 3.75 stars. Next up, we have The Midnight Library. I did enjoy this book. The whole premise is that our main character, Nora, is extremely depressed and unhappy, and she attempts suicide. She attempts to take her own life in a very tragic twist within the first couple chapters of the book. And she ends up at the Midnight Library, which is a space that exists between life and death, and it is kind of like a room of regrets, and you can pick out different books from this library and live different alternative lives. So it's a very interesting premise. I will say at some points it did feel a little bit slow. I don't feel as though every single alternate life that we got to see was completely necessary. That being said, the message was still extremely powerful, and the idea that no matter where we are, no matter what life we are in, there is no dream life, there is no perfect reality. You're always going to have regrets and disappointments, and the idea is just that you have to live to your best ability. So the Midnight Library ended up with 3.5 stars. Next up, we have The Fall Risk by Abby Jimenez. I absolutely love Abby Jimenez. There has not been a book that this woman has put out that has not been a banger. That being said, this is not a book, it is a novella, and I personally do not love novellas. This story ultimately fell just a little bit flat for me. I think because it was so short, we weren't as emotionally connected to our characters as their story could have allowed for if it had been fully fleshed out. It was super quick. I obviously read it in I don't know, a couple hours. It's only 120 pages. I gave it 3 stars. It was cute. I mean, it's worth the time that it took to read it, but am I gonna be thinking about it anytime soon? Probably not. Next up, we have Carrie Soto is Back, which surprisingly became my second 5-star book of the year. I say surprisingly because I read Malibu Rising first, and of course, if you've read that book, you know that Carrie Soto is like the ultimate villain, the other woman, but I love Carrie Soto. She is a strong, badass, takes no shit, is not gonna smile just because you tell her to, is not gonna act nice just because you tell her to. She knows why she's there, and she's there to win. And if she's not winning, what is the point? And I will say that with Carrie Soto, while we got to see her ambition, we also got to see the cost of her ambition and the things that she lost because of it. She kind of forgot her love for the game. She forgot how to play just for passion. And we're kind of watching her make her way back to that and reconcile with her life and reconcile with everything that comes with being a champion, both wins and losses. It was really, really sweet reading this book and seeing her have such an amazing relationship with her father and their ups and downs and how they overcome it and how he just loves her and cares for her through it all. I love him so much. So yeah, that being said, I love an unlikable character who's actually just driven and ambitious and doesn't care about what other people think, and Carrie Soto is a 5-star. I think about it all of the time. Okay, so our next book is another book club book, which is The Heaven and Earth Grocery Store by James McBride. I have a complicated relationship with this book in that I enjoyed it and I was incredibly invested and also bored at the same time. The premise of this story was incredibly interesting. It is set in the 1930s Chicken Hill in Pennsylvania, and it's about a mixed race community of mostly Black and Jewish folk living on Chicken Hill, and then all of the, rich people who are up and coming, and then the white people live in town. And it's basically just highlighting their daily lives, their troubles, what they go through. You see so many different perspectives, so many diverse lives, but at the same time, it is so many point of views, and not necessarily in a way that makes them completely easy to follow. And in addition to this, in the beginning of the book, it is kind of set up like a murder mystery, which is completely put on the back burner. It is not a murder mystery. Do not go into this book thinking that, because we basically don't hear about it until the last chapter. I do recommend it, but I would just kind of maybe know what you're getting yourself into. And this ended up getting a 3.75 from me. Next up, we have Nora Goes Off Script by Annabelle Monaghan. And this book was so good, especially after reading The Heaven and Earth Grocery Store. I was looking for something just light, fast-paced, cute, fun, and this delivered. I love Annabelle Monaghan. She is a recent author of mine. I've had her kind of in the back of my mind wanting to pick up her books for a while now, but I finally did so this year. And I just really love the stories that she creates because they are both incredibly just light and fluffy and kind of a filler read, while also having an emotional depth that isn't heavy, if that makes sense. I don't know. I think that she does the balance really, really well. So this is a forced proximity romance between Nora and Leo. Nora is a stay-at-home mom and writer, and Leo is a Hollywood movie star who ends up filming at her house for a couple weeks, and then, or not even a couple weeks, for a weekend, and then decides to just invite himself to stay and offers her money to do so, and she's not necessarily in a place to say no to that. So Nora has 2 kids that are really, really sweet, and as all 4 of them kind of spend time together, they get to know each other better. Of course, they start to really care for one another, and it's such a good story, and Nora gets everything that she deserves in the best way possible after putting up with her trash ex. If there's one thing that Annabelle Monaghan can write, it is a trash ex that I want to reach through this page and just slap him. But yes, I definitely recommend this book, especially for the spring or the summertime, because it is just, again, super lighthearted and easy to read. I think I flew through this book in like a day. The next book that I read, I could make a whole video on. I read Magnolia Park's Into the Dark. And before you even ask, of course this was 5 stars. Of course this was 5 stars. It was never going to be anything but 5 stars. I love this story. I love these characters. I love these people. I just want to take this book and I want to take its characters and I want to scoop them all up into a hug and just keep them there with me for forever. Is that too much? I put off reading this book for far too long, because I knew that it was going to rip my heart out because of how the Long Way Home ended. Because of course we couldn't be happy, because we were happy and then we weren't. So I put off reading this book because I knew that it was going to hurt me, and it did, but in the best way possible. This book literally ripped my heart out of my chest, stomped on it, and then put a band-aid over it and put it back and was like, oh, I'm sorry. That's how I felt whenever I finished this book. And I'm not going to go into too much detail because this is obviously the 5th book in the Magnolia Parks Daisy Hates series. And I don't want to spoil anything, but I will say that I am officially a BJ Valentine girly. I didn't think that the day was ever going to come because honestly, I thoroughly disliked him before this. I was like, wow, I love Magnolia Parks. I love her story. La 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 la. This is great. But BJ, you better count your days. Because the way that he kept messing with my girl Magnolia was not okay with me. However, his redemption arc was so sweet, guys, and he really did put in the work. Like, it wasn't surface level. He genuinely put in the work, and he tried to make himself better, and he did make himself better. And he also tried to make Magnolia better, because he was like, hey, you deserve healing, you deserve peace for yourself as well. Not even just for him, but for herself. So I love him now, and I love this book, and if you haven't picked up the series yet, you seriously need to. I know it's not for everybody, but on the off chance that it is for you, you're missing out. So, 5 stars, duh. Next up, we picked up Wild Side by Elsie Silver because if Elsie Silver writes it, I'm going to read it. However, this book did fall just a little itty bit flat for me. I think if it hadn't have been an Elsie Silver book, I would have liked it more, but knowing her potential, I feel like I grade her just a little bit harsher than other romance authors. And it just felt a little bit run-of-the-mill. It was still super cute. The characters were connected in kind of a fun, different way that I haven't read before. The kid in this was really cute. I do forget his name. Maybe Milo? What's his name? I don't have a ton to say on this book other than the fact that I did enjoy it. I do think that you should pick it up, but I just want you to know that it did maybe feel a little bit formulaic. And also, there were some parts of this that made me cringe just a little bit. I know I'm not the only one to talk about this, but the mask, I can't picture it, girl. I'm following you, and now I'm not following you. You know what I mean? Like, I'm dead stop, I'm watching, and I'm confused. So, if you're happy, I'm happy, but, that wasn't my favorite. No, you do with that what you will. I ended up giving this 3 stars. It was very okay. Next up we have The Ballad of Songbird and Snakes. And yes, I finally picked this up. Yes, it did take me way too long. And yes, I did mean to read it before the movie came out last year. And I have meant to read it every single month since then. But we did it, so that's okay. I did in fact make a mistake watching the movie first. I knew that as it was happening, okay? I knew that. There were parts of this book that dragged just a little bit for me because I watched the movie, I knew how it was going to end. The bits of tension didn't really hit as hard as I think they might have if I had been sitting here reading it for the first time, like experiencing the story for the first time. If it wasn't for that, we might have even been at a 4.5, but I did land on 4 stars for this story. I love Suzanne Collins. I love The Hunger Games. I'm always going to love this series. I think that it is so incredibly hard-hitting, and it stands the test of time. It stands the test of age. I love these books when I was 12. I love these books now. Okay, that's not changing. Next, we have The Crown of Midnight by Sarah J. Maas. And I loved this book. I think that being in such a long series, and again, this is book 3 for me in the order that I'm reading them. So this is book 3, so I might change my mind, but I don't think I will. I think that she does such a good job at keeping each book packed with enough action and individual plot while setting up for larger, bigger picture things that it doesn't get boring. In this book, Selena is embracing the darker sides of herself while also keeping a balance with her morals and what she views to be right while serving a king that she hates. It is so well done. I love Selena as a character in general. Everything about her I love, and parts of this book literally ripped my heart out. I was crying reading this book. The pacing in the beginning was maybe a little bit slow, which is why this didn't get 5 stars for me, but the ending absolutely delivered, so we are at a solid 4.5 stars for the Crown of Midnight. After Crown of Midnight, I did need a bit of a palate cleanser again, so I picked up A Novel Love Story by Ashley Poston. This was cute. It was cute. It was exactly what I needed after reading such a heavy book like Crown of Midnight, like the Throne of Glass series. It's what I needed. It was there. She was there for me. But this did lack emotional depth to me. The story was cute, the concept was cute. It's a book lover's dream to be transported into their favorite book, unless your favorite book is something crazy like The Hunger Games, in which case maybe you don't want to be transported there. But, you know, a romance reader's dream to be transported into a cozy small town where they can meet all of their like favorite characters. That is so cute and fun. But again, it just lacked emotional depth for me. I'm probably never going to really think about it again, so this did get a 3 stars. Next up, we have Skyshade, which is the next book in the Lightlark series. This was good. This was good. I will say, and this is my mistake, I thought that this was a trilogy. I thought that this was the last book in the series. So whenever we were getting to 80, 85, 90%, 95%, and the plot twists were still coming, I was like, what is happening? I was like, are we just gonna end the whole entire series on a plot twist? I had kind of made peace with that. I was like, okay, so we just never know what happens. No, I was wrong. This is not a trilogy. There are more books to come. I believe it's gonna be 5 in total. Moving past that, it was really satisfying to watch Isla come more into her powers. In the last book, she was kind of, you know, figuring out how to even access them. So in this one, seeing her go further and further and kind of figure out the depths of her power and of her, not even just like magical powers, but just emotional and intellectual and just the inner strength that she finds in herself, I found really, really interesting to read about. And as for the love triangle, I know I just said that I like it and I think that she could end up with either one, but in this book, I think it's very clear who she's going to end up with, and I think we can wrap it up. So yeah, I'm giving this one a 3.75 stars. Next up, we have Before I Let Go, and this book was good. I did enjoy it, and it gave me a lot to think about whenever it comes to love and grief and trauma and healing. I'm not a parent, so it was really interesting to see that point of view. And that being said, those parts might be the only things that I really, really enjoyed about this story. I kind of feel as though Yasmin and Josiah were not fully connected. They had a lot of unresolved trauma and they had a lot of sexual tension and they were connected through their children, but other than that, I don't feel as though they personally in their own relationship did a lot of healing or thinking, for lack of a better word. So that being said, I ended up giving this one a 3 stars. Next up, we have Book Lovers by Emily Henry, and I do just want to point out that this is the 3rd book I've read where the main character's name is Nora over the past 3 months. And that's fine, but it's kind of weird. I don't know that I often read about Noras or meet Noras, and now I've read about 3 of them. So anyways, that being said, Nora and Charlie were super cute. I do think that they made sense as a pair and they balanced each other quite well, but I don't feel as connected to them as I have some of Emily Henry's other book couples, such as in Beach Read or Happy Place, where I think about them all of the time. I will also say that I don't really think that this book is a rivals to Lovers. I think it was kind of marketed that way. They're not rivals. They kind of just had like a bad encounter a couple years ago and now they're forced proximity / choosing to spend time together. So all in all, it was a good book. It has Emily Henry's charm. It was fun to read, but it wasn't my favorite of hers, so I ended up giving this one a 3.5 stars. Next up, we have Heir of Fire, which surprisingly, for being a book in the middle of a series, is 5 stars. I loved this book. All of the POVs, the different perspectives that we're getting, the growth that we're getting, all of the different storylines that are leading up to this big event, the growth that we see from Selena, and the way that we see her learn to accept herself and embrace herself was so powerful. I can't say too much because again, we're in the middle of a series, but I loved this book. I don't even want to really say characters' names other than Selena because I feel like that has gotten me in books before where someone will say somebody's name and I'm like, well, now I know what happens. So I'm not going to go into depth like I said, but I do feel as though this book was more mature than the first 2. The problems that we're facing are, you know, a part of the bigger world. We're seeing new places. It was so interesting, and I think about these characters every day, all day of my life. Next up, we have the favorites, which I feel like everybody has been talking about, and this is Carrie Soto meets the writing of Daisy Jones and the Six, and I loved this book. It was so good. There were a couple things that kept me from giving it a 5 stars, but I did land on 4.5 stars, which is nothing to laugh at. This has love, drama, obsession, chemistry, winning, competition, sabotage, backstabbing, like everything you could possibly want from a book, it's in here. And it was so good. I loved Katerina, our main character, and the reason I say that she gives me Carrie Soto vibes is because she is also just unapologetically there to win. She's like, this is what I want and nobody's standing in my way. One of the things I didn't love was Heath, our male main character. He was just a mess. We were on a roller coaster with him. I did really enjoy him in the beginning. I loved how loyal he was and the reasons why he was there, but I do think that he just became shrouded by jealousy and obsession in a different way that kind of guided him to make some really unideal decisions. And I will say something that I did also like were the side characters. They were so chaotic and human and imperfect, and because we're in this highly competitive, cutthroat field or setting, I do think that having all of the characters be a little bit shady was really interesting and fun for me. So yeah, like I said, I ended up giving the favorites 4.5 stars, and I do highly recommend this one. Next up, we have Beartown by Frederick Bachman, and I know that everybody and their mother has been talking about this book, but for good reason. They should be talking about this book. This book changed my life. This is my first time reading Frederick Bachman, and I'm so glad that I started with this story, because while it did take a minute for me to get pulled into it and to become situated to everybody's POVs, once I was in it, I was in it. You cannot convince me that this is not a real town, that these are not real people, that these are not real struggles, because they are. They might have different names, they might have different faces, but this is a real story. This book is about a hockey town that is basically on the brink of extinction, and everybody is fighting for survival. Everybody is fighting for the survival of this town, for the survival of themselves, for the survival of their families. And that being said, everything rests on this junior ice hockey team. Is that fair? No. Is that what has happened? Yes. Everything rests on them, and because of that, winning becomes more important than anything else, including morals. And this story shows you just how far people will go for self-preservation. It does not shy away from hard topics. We get into rape culture, we get into toxic masculinity, we get into, the culture of like the boys club, and oh, well, it doesn't matter, like whatever you say in the locker room, like that doesn't matter, but it does matter because it's building a whole entire culture of silence. And this is a 6-star read for me. I will think about this book for forever. Next, we have The Conditions of Will by Jessa Hastings. And I did choose to annotate this book, and that might have been a mistake because it ended up taking me a month to read. Every time I annotate a book, I say, I'm never annotating a book again. It takes me so long. I'm really bad at annotating. I can't annotate. I get distracted. I highlight every single line like I'm in a freaking 8th grade science class and I can't figure out what's going to be on the test. Okay? That is how I annotate. There are so many tabs in this book. I only have blue and pink here. And I'm telling you, whenever it is 4 different shades of blue and pink because I kept running out of tabs, I'm not joking. I love this story. It was so interesting. I love the characters. I love the setting. I love Georgia. She is so smart. Like, always the smartest person in the room, in the way that she reads people and has trained herself to always be one step ahead in order to combat the trauma that she has from growing up with the family that she did, is just so incredibly interesting and heartbreaking at the same time. I do think that some people might read this as insta love. I disagree. I think that it is insta connection and insta recognition that these two characters have for each other, and they are just from day one kind of on the same page and working on the same team, and I love to see it. It is what she deserves. It is what Georgia deserves. I will say, as a character, Tennyson really, really surprised me. We don't need to talk about Marianne. We all know that she sucks. Boo. Boo, Marianne. Boo, Marianne. Tennyson, however, really, really surprised me. I feel like he's the only person other than Georgia in this family who is trying to break the cycle of hurt. and is who is trying to do better for himself and for his family. The growth that he has in his relationship with Georgia as siblings was so incredibly heartwarming, and I ended up really, really coming to care for him. That being said, Oliver, who I think I'm supposed to like, I don't like him. I understand that addiction is hard. I understand that addiction is an illness. I understand that there is no cure, and I do not care because Georgia has become his scapegoat, and she protects him and defends him to no end. To no end, and I just don't think that he deserves it. I don't think that he deserves it, and I'm sorry if you disagree. Anyways, I'm not going to talk about it any longer, but I do recommend that you read this book, and I ended up giving this 4 stars. So, next up we have a Shady Hollow murder mystery, and I ended up picking this up because I saw it in Barnes & Noble, and the cover was so cute. I'm not a mystery person, I'm not a thriller person, I'm not a horror person. However, this one was so cozy because all of the characters are woodland creatures. They all live in a forest. Shady Hollow is a forest, and they're all woodland creatures. That is so cute. So our main character is a fox, and the sheriff is a bear, and the person who was murdered is a toad, and the richest family in town are beavers. Like, are you kidding me? That is just so, like, it was just so whimsical. And yes, it was a murder mystery, but I think because, like, it's a cozy mystery, it wasn't gruesome at all. There weren't really any gory details, which is what really turns my stomach and I can't do it. So this was not that. This was so cute and fun to read, which sounds weird to say about a murder mystery, but it was. And I ended up giving it 3.5 stars. It was fluffy and easy to read and fast-paced, and I really enjoyed it. So yeah. Finally, let's get into my last book, and the book that I DNF'd and I regret picking up and giving attention. And I also picked up this book because I saw the cover at Barnes & Noble, and I was like, oh my gosh, it's so pretty. I would love to have these on my shelves. It's a hockey romance. I like hockey romances. Sure. I am so glad that I found this on Kindle Unlimited and that I did not buy that physical copy, because this book had me rolling my eyes so hard. Also, it's Consider Me by Becca Mack. So I got 30% of the way into this book, and the only reason I even got that far is because I downloaded it and then I went and got my happy ass on an airplane, and I didn't have service to read anything else. It was so cringe. This book was like 550 pages, maybe longer, of just the most baseline, one note, Wattpad story romance that you have ever read. The main character, the only thing I know about her is that her name is Olivia, and she is a teacher who is sexualized by her high school students, and she's short. And the only thing I know about the main character, the guy, is that I think his name is Carter, and he's tall, and he's a millionaire, and he plays hockey, and he is a playboy. That's it. That's as far as I got. That's all that I learned in 30%. And can I tell you something else? He referred to it as a sword of thunder. A sword of thunder? Okay, Thor. Okay, big guy. I'm just gonna need you to settle down right down. I'm just gonna need you to settle right on down. Okay. I give this book 0.5 stars. So yeah, those are all of the books that I read this spring. Again, I feel like I had a really good couple of months. I had 2 5-star reads and 1 6-star read. I'm counting that as highly successful, and I'm really proud of myself for the amount of books that I was able to get through in the past couple months. Let me know if you agree with me, if you disagree with me, if I totally trashed your favorite book, or if I loved a book that you hated. So yeah, let me know how you feel. Yeah, I'll see you in the next one. Bye.